The other important aspect to interpersonal relationships is the idea of a psychological mirror. Relationships are phenomenal mirrors to your own self-psyche. Of what we end up doing is we project on a subconscious level undeveloped needs or desires or aspects of our own personality that are unresolved into the relationship when we look to fulfill them. You'll hear them in women's culture, the simple term, "you complete me." Women are very cognizant of that. Men typically are not. You'll find other aspects, who you choose to date, who you choose to bring into your life, who you allow to enter in your life, how you spend that time, how you value those aspects, are all value and judgment aspects that reflect upon your ideas and your sense of the world, your sense of self-entitlement, what you expect for yourself, what you expect for your life. They're terribly eye-opening. And if you spend time to actually look at the natures of your relationships, you can tell a lot about an individual. You can tell a lot about yourself. The biggest issues is when you start to have trouble in the relationship, or when there's a failure of one, or when you start looking at your emotional needs. Relationships, again, are amazing mirrors to that self-reflection. You can find and discover a tremendous amount of yourself about that, and they're signs to sit down and say, these are things I need to look at, these are elements I should study, these are elements I should probably investigate a little bit further to actually get a better handle on myself, my life, and why I'm doing this. We also can look at, the psychological mirror for your personal baggage. At no point can we all sit down and say we're all innocent. You've had issues, you've been hurt, you've been scarred. We all come with a number of things. Relationships can help underscore some of these issues. Looking into handle these will actually free you up in a number of ways. And many of them can be very, very heady, and it can have a tremendous amount of emotional weight. You don't need to be carrying that. And relationships can actually help you discover these aspects in your own behavior and insight and how you regard them. And so in that regard, cleansing yourself of that, I think, are phenomenal. The other aspect is your ability to use a relationship as a testing ground. What are your interpersonal skills like? How are you able to communicate? How much empathy are you able to show? Are you able to relate with other people? Are you a selfish individual? And there are amazing testing grounds to sit down and say, I want to learn and develop particular skills, and then utilize them. And of course, this doesn't necessarily have to be just in very intimate relationships, committed monogamous relationships. As younger guys, you should be dating. Okay, that's what these things are for. It's part of an interview process. And you can have a variety of women in your lives and be utilizing these same skills appropriately. Now, these are still relationships, okay? They may not be monogamous, they may not be highly committed. But at the same time, they're still relationships. And developing a better integrated aspect of you is what we're trying to achieve. We want your aspects to be integrated in a very cohesive way that's also socially and culturally appropriate to your own morals. And it's a tough ground because you're operating often without a net. You're going to be invested. You're going to have something at stake. You literally have skin in the game. And that makes decisions much more harder. There's no reset button like on a video game. God, I wish there was. Let me save to this point, go back and redo it until I actually get it right. Unfortunately, you're going to have to work to a process where you're involved with somebody to the point where you come across that again. That may take time. It may take years. But the idea is you're going to see reoccurring themes again and again and again in your lives until you are able to better handle it. And you don't know if you're going to be able to handle it until life presents you that same issue or a similar issue, and you don't make the same mistakes again. Awareness is not the same thing as knowledge. Knowledge is when you don't do it. And trust me, I'm aware of so many things in my life, I don't necessarily do what I know I'm supposed to. And that's human nature. You can't be flagellating yourself as well. You have to sit down and be a little bit easier on yourself, but to sit down and say you're human. But to be aware of the situation, try better, and when you know better, do better. One of the most important aspects of interpersonal relationships, I feel, is not just all the things I've listened. This, in a very, very serious way, is where the real damage is done. This is where it's going to cost you dearly. This is where your self-esteem is going to take a beating. This is where you're going to get gut punched with your self-respect. When you put yourself out there, you're highly vested, whether it's emotional, monetary, commitment, any number of things, you are going to be highly invested in an individual in a relationship. Often we project our self-identity in them, and they get destroyed for any number of reasons. one of the sorriest aspects, and we hear people talking about this within society, the breakdown of family structures. When you actually commit to the point that you're married to an individual, have families, and have that, and then the failure. This affects our world community, it affects our society. Learning basic interpersonal relationship skills, I think, is integral to actually alleviating some of that, not only in your own lives, but in the greater aspects of the world in which we live. And in some regard, that's the real seriousness of what we're talking about. The fun side about it is you want to sit down and say, I'm going to have better quality relationships, I'm going to have better quality women in my life, and I'm going to enjoy myself in a manner in which I wasn't free to do before. These are all very real things. On a very selfish level, I'm enjoying learning about interpersonal development within relationships because I like winning the client again. It's an economic business term. It's easier. I'm telling you, the idea of being able to have a woman on a regular basis, not have to go out every day and hunt for your food, bring it home and kill it, and drag it in the house and repeat that process on a daily cycle, it just makes economic sense. Emotionally, physically, everything. I don't want to have to be doing it. Not only that, I'm getting older. I'm not like a lot of you. I don't have, George Clooney's mug. It takes work. And relationships are like that. They're also highly beneficial. And it's not always about the fucking. It really, really isn't. And that brings me to the last point of why I think interpersonal relationships are so critical, is because the highs and lows of your life, the amount of tail you got last night just isn't going to cut it. All right? When you're dealing with professional development, personal achievements, day-to-day grind where you've achieved, you're going to want to share that with more than your family and friends. No matter how close you are, it is not going to be the same thing as when you're actually very, very connected with a specific individual that you share the daily, days in, days out grind with. And that is a serious issue. One of the worst ones is not necessarily when you're alone and you're a high point, because we know they may not occur, but I can guarantee you're going to have low points in your life. Some of them are going to be extreme. I went through one pretty much 3 weeks ago. Wasn't in a relationship, and I felt it. Literally had to face death, loss of a loved one in my life, and it was a devastating aspect. And I had to come face to face with that, be responsible for the terminal care of an individual. And what I wanted more than anything else in the world at that moment was somebody I can be emotionally weak with, emotionally vulnerable with, and emotionally real with. And when you're alone, you're alone. You don't get that back. All right? These are kind of the serious aspects. I don't want it to be super, super serious, but it's things that we don't necessarily talk about, it's things that we don't relate to, and men need to be talking about these things. All right? Moving on from the purpose of why I think relationships are actually a positive aspect, committed relationships, you're going to need to know probably some basic elemental skills. And one of the more important ones, I think, is the notion, literally, of filtering and screening people, of making sure that you don't have to deal with toxic individuals, things you don't want to do, and actually you're dealing with the elements that you want. And if you don't have an ability to screen, you're going to be dealing with everything. The best way I can relate to it is if you go to a restaurant and you order food and every time you get is a garbage plate. Anything the chef could actually throw and slop onto a plate. That's fine as a novelty. Sometimes it's damn good. More often than not, you're going to find stuff that's like, what the hell am I dealing with? On the flip side is you don't want to have your controls so tight that you have the opposite problem where you have a fine dining French dish where it's mostly plate, it's just a little bit of food, it's not going to subside you, and the elements are propped up in an odd way. You're going to have to moderate and to the degree in which you filter and screen individuals in and out of your life, and you better start having an idea of a sense, what do you want to screen for, what do you want to screen against. One of the things that I'll typically do very, very early on is something I'll call the screaming narrative. People project their life story constantly. Watch for it. What are they telling you? What are they telling you by the nonverbal cues? What are they telling you by the verbal cues? And one of the fun ones, I did it last night with talking to a couple of the guys. Ask. It sounds stupid. Look at a girl and ask, tell me about yourself. And if she sits down and says, I'm crazy, I'm wild, I'm out of control, and I'm an American princess, I tell you, I'm going to introduce you guys to her. okay? You want to stay away from that one, unless that's exactly what you want. But ultimately, if you're looking for a long-term committed relationship, you want to have somebody in your life, those may not be the qualities you want to exhibit. All right? Another one, a psychologist friend of mine, and God, I wish I could pay him every time I use it, is I'll ask a simple question. Tell me about the relationship you have with your father, which incidentally is going to be the longest running male relationship she has. All right? And in most cases, this is going to be the most experience she has with intersexual relationships. And what you're looking for is not the specific answer, but the tone of it. You know, it's not whether it was healthy or unhealthy. If it's healthy, bravo, outstanding, probably a good sign. If it's unhealthy, really pay attention. How is she handling it? How is she working through it? Or is he just the biggest asshole in the world and he's a son of a bitch? Guess what she's going to do? Reenact that relationship with probably every male she has in her life. You want to watch for these aspects. So that would be the first aspect of filtering and screening. The other aspect is a business notion, and that is that you make your profits at the buy, not at the sell. And the notion there is what happens is the people you let in your life, the quality of those people that you let in determine the profit margin you're going to have. Most people are not going to all of a sudden break out and have a massive transformation. They're not going to all of a sudden become these glowing swans of fairy tales. They pretty much will move through their life, consistently evolving a little bit, but not a big marker change. And the quality of those individuals you let in your life determine the content of it. All right? And in another way of analogizing is don't let people in. It's almost like taking a train ride. Get on the wrong train, and every stop's going to be the wrong one. Same thing with people. Let the wrong people in. Every stop, every aspect of your life is probably going to be the wrong one you want. All right. Another aspect I'd like to cover is the idea of not giving women a free pass. Too often as men, we do this. They're cute, they're female, I want to show them attention, and we start becoming performing monkeys. That's not necessarily a smart thing. You know, wait and make them earn your respect and attention. Because you're a noble being by your own right, and we don't treat ourselves like that. Doesn't mean you have to be ugly, doesn't mean you have to be an asshole, but just don't give yourself away for nothing. All right? They won't respect you. They don't understand it, and trust me, they will run with it. What happens when you give something away for nothing? When you continuously do that?
They don't value it.
Bingo. Value yourself first. I think you guys are doing that right now. You're here, you're projecting yourself, you're putting yourself out there, you're investing your hard-earned money in coming and attending a seminar like this. You're interacting with each other. Learn, steal ideas, share, make them your own.